So we'll be declaring, so let's just add a comment so that we'll be able to separate that string data type with what we are about to learn in the number data type. Okay, so basically the number data type is used for arithmetic and logical operations. All right, so we have different methods in which we can declare whole numbers, decimal point numbers, long integer points, which are long values. Okay, we can also declare exponential value. All right, so let's just take a look at some of these methods that we can use to declare this number data type. All right, so I'm going to use first of all call up your keyword and a valid identifier. All right, so I'm going to make it value. All right, so let's just add a whole number. All right, so if you want to declare an whole number, you simply call up that value. All right, so it can be 55, it can be 25. All right, so your number data type does not have a quotation. All right, only strings have quotations. Okay, so let's continue. So we can also declare decimal values. All right, so I'm going to make this 55 point, let's say 567. All right, so this is how you declare decimal point values. You can also declare long values. All right, so we have one, then you can add as many zeros as possible. Okay, instead of adding spaces in between. All right, you can just use an underscore, so this is not accepted. All right, so instead you use an underscore to join them together. Okay, so that's why we have an underscore in order to declare long integer values. We can also declare exponential values. All right, so let's say exponential, so that is going to be 10 exponential. All right, so let's make it 6. Right, so let's make it 6. So that allows us to declare exponential values. All right, so that is 6 zeros at the front. Then we can also declare decimal points. All right, negative exponential value. All right, so we can call up a negative expo value. All right, so that would be 10 exponential minus 6. All right, so 10 exponential minus 6. So let's output all of this and see how it's being displayed. So we have the value, we have the decimal value, we have the long value. Okay, we have the expo value. All right, we have the negative expo value. All right, so let's check this out on our console. So you can see on your console, right, your datas are being displayed. All right, so you have your 55, your decimal values, your long integer value, your exponential value, and your negative exponential value. All right, so we can also check the type of data that we are working with. All right, we can check the type of data we are working with by simply using the type of method. All right, so the type of method will give you the type of data that you're working with. So let's use expo value to check that data type. All right, so when we preview this, you can see it says number data type. All right, so we said that the number data type can be used for arithmetic and logical operations. So let's check out some of these arithmetic and logical operations that we can perform. Your basic modulus, right? Your plus, minus, divide, right? So let's just check it out. So we have value is equal to 55, and we have decimal value. All right, decimal value is equal to. All right, so let's make that 55.5 or whatever value. Okay, so let me zoom this more. So alright, so let's just console.log some of these results. So that will be for the plus, we make use of the plus sign. Alright, so that will be decimal value. Now this plus sign is quite different from the plus sign used in the string data type. Okay, when the plus sign comes in place for the number data type, it's adding these values together. Alright, but when the plus sign is used in the string data type. That means it's joining multiple strings together. All right, so that's just the difference. Okay, so we can also um, use the minus. We can also use the multiplication. All right, so we also have the division, and we have the modulus operator. Now, the modulus operator actually gives us the remainder of a division of a number, right? So it gives us the remainder of the division, okay? So this is the result that we have. You can see that the modulus of this is 55, all right? So that is value modulus decimal value, all right? So always gives us the remainder of the result, okay? So now let's add a little scenario. All right, so I have let's say new value is equal to 55. Okay, and I have another number, all right, which we have as for 34. Okay, so let's try to add up these two values together. Okay, so let's say let result equal to new value plus number. All right, so let's see the results that we do have. Okay, so once you console.log that, all right, once you console.log that and you preview that, you can see that you have 555 That means these values are being joined together instead of being added together. All right, so sometimes your your manipulation may have such results. Okay, so this result comes about due to the fact that there's a particular value that is a string and one is a number. All right, so when you are adding a string and a number together, all right, it's going to join them together, it's going to concatenate them together. All right, so the best thing to always do is when you have a string data type, you need to convert it to a number data type. So we have different methods in which we can do this. All right, so we can use the number method to convert, and we also have other methods that we'll look at. So let's say we have the latest value. All right, so let's call it latest value equal to what? Number. All right, then you wrap the new value with it. Okay, so that means this new value will be converted into a number data type. All right, so instead of using the new value, I will go ahead and use the latest value. All right, latest value. So the latest value plus the number will be summed together. All right, so it's going to add them up together to give you the summation of these two values. Okay, so let's also look at other ways in which we can convert numbers. All right, so we can also use the pass float and the pass int. So let's say we have um, let's say digits equal to 55.555. All right, so this can also be a value. All right, this can also be a value. Now when you have such value and you want to convert it to number, all right, so let's attribute the result of this console.log let's say number and digits. All right, so let's see what we have. So we have 555.555. All right, so apart from using this, we can also use pass int. But here's the difference between this number and pass int. All right, so pass int. All right, so let's call up the console.log and call out the pass int. All right, so we add the digits. All right, now pass int actually converts the number towards an integer number. All right, so it subtracts away all the decimal point numbers, all right, thereby leaving only the whole number. So it only takes whole numbers and lets go of the decimal point. Okay, so when you check this out, you can see that you have 55 as your result. All right, or you can also use pass float. So pass float also retains the whole number and the decimal point, just like this number method. All right, so I can call up the console.log, and we can add, let's say, pass float. Then we can have, let's say, digits. Okay, so pass float also retains the whole number and the decimal point number. All right, and we can also, so let's call up, let's say, const, yeah, new digits, all right, equal to, let's use the pass float and digit. All right, so that will be stored inside the new digits. Okay, now what about rounding up? All right, so those are some of the methods. All right, these are some of the methods for formatting the number data type, using the number, using the pass int, using the pass float. But what about rounding up your numbers? All right, so we can format our numbers to a certain whole number or decimal point number, all right, using the fixed method. All right, so I'm going to add that as formatting numbers. Okay, so using the fixed method, we can wrap up our number to a whole number or decimal point number. All right, so we have that new digit, so we can use the fixed. So we can say new digit dot fixed. Fixed rounds up our number. All right, so it rounds it up. So we have 55.555. So the output of this should be 56. All right, so it's going to round it up to its nearest whole number. All right, so you can see you have what, 56. Okay, so you can also round it up to a certain decimal point. All right, so we have new digits to fixed. All right, so if we want it to be like 2 decimal points, we can indicate, all right, by adding 2 in between that method. Okay, so if you take a look at the output, you can see you have what, 55.56. So using to fix method, you can round up your number to an equivalent whole number or a decimal point number. You can also use the round method. All right, you can use the round method, and you can also use the floor method. All right, so let's check out that as well. So you can use the new digits dot round. All right, so you can use the round method. Yeah, that is the math dot round, rather, not round. So it's going to be math. All right, so you have to call up the math method. Okay, so that is math dot round. Then you wrap up the new digits in it. All right, so you wrap up the new digit in it. So when you check it out, you can see you have what, 56 as your output. So the round method can also be used to what, round up your values. All right, so if you're not using to fixed, to round up value, you can also use the round method, or you can also use the floor method. All right, so the floor method can also be used. That is the maths.floor. All right, so we can introduce the new digits in this. All right, so once you check it out, and what do we have? So you have 55. So your maths.floor takes the whole number, all right, instead of rounding it up for us. All right, so these are some of the methods that you can employ. All right, so speaking about the maths method, you also have a whole lot of math method that you can use, all right, to format your numbers. For example, we can look for the minimum value, all right, of a number using the maths.min. All right, so we can, let's say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so this should actually give us the minimum value, all right, so which is 1. And we can also look for the maximum value of a number using the max.max. All right, so we have 1, 2, 20, alright, 3, let's say 4, 5, alright. So it's going to actually give us the maximum value of this number, alright, so which is 20. Okay, so there are so many other use cases of these methods that you can apply, all right. So you can just go through this, play around with it, and get comfortable with it, all right, when you're working with the number data type. So the number data type just gives us some certain methods that we can use to format our numbers, all right, and for basic arithmetic and logical operations, all right. So let's move on to the next, which is the other primitive data types, and we'll also look at the complex data types. So if you've enjoyed this section, please do like and share this video so that I can get to as many JavaScript learners as possible, and also follow up our channel for more updates on JavaScript. Alright, so see you in the next section.